I'd like to thank researcher Vince Palomara, who found Dr. Zedlitz and first wrote to him and then let the other researchers know whenever Dr. Zedlitz responded. And then I will just turn things over to you. I'd like to thank researcher Vince Palomara, who found Dr. Zedlitz and first wrote to him and then let the other researchers know whenever Dr. Zedlitz responded. And then I will just turn things over to you.
The day is permanently etched in my mind. I was a second-year surgery resident in general surgery under Dr. Tom Shires at Parkland Hospital in November 1963. We had just finished a surgical case in the operating room, and I was working with my first-year resident. And I'm not really sure what we were doing, but we had finished the case, and we were outside dictating, or had finished dictating the operative dictation, which you always do after you do surgery, and write the orders and see the patient is cared for. And over the intercom, I heard someone paging Dr. Shires' stat immediately to the emergency room. Well, Dr. Shires, being the chairman of the department and the head of the department, no one pages him stat to do anything. So I thought that was kind of unusual. And since he was out of town that weekend anyway, and I had just finished with the surgery, I thought to myself, I'll wander down there and see what's happening. So I took the elevator, which goes from the emergency room to the operating suite, down to the emergency room on the ground floor. And as I was stepped out of the elevator, there was a nice looking gentleman there in a suit, and he was holding a gun. And he says, "Are you a doctor?" And I said, "Well, yes, I am." And he says, "Please follow me." So he led me around the corner through the main emergency room itself. And you'll have to sort of visualize this, a Parkland emergency room that is empty. I've never seen it before in my life. There are always people there, nurses running back and forth, carrying medicines or carrying surgical trays or doing something to help the doctors. There are patients laying on gurneys. Some of them would be groaning and moaning. Others were calling for the nurse. But it was eerie because the entire emergency room was totally empty. There was not a nurse, not a patient, not another doctor, nobody there except the gentleman in the suit with the gun and myself. They must have very hurriedly emptied that emergency room. I don't know where they went, but It was empty. I followed him down the hallway to trauma room 1, which is our primary trauma room, and opened the door. And he said, "Here, doctor." And I opened the door, pushed the door, and there on the gurney was an individual which I immediately recognized as President Kennedy. He was lying in a supine position, face up. Someone had removed his clothes, which is standard procedure in a major injury, and I was impressed with the size of this man. He was a large man. This did not come through on television or any other media that I had seen, but he was a big man, very well proportioned man. He had ace bandages, which are elastic bandages, wrapped from his ankles to his groin on both sides. And to the left of the gurney, I was at his feet when I went in the door. The head was at the other end. And there was another gurney against the wall on the left as I entered, which contained his clothes and probably the gurney he came in on and was transferred to the one he was on then. And I just glanced at it to see how much room there was in the trauma room. Not very much. There were 3 physicians there ahead of me. There was Dr. James Carrico, who had inserted an endotracheal tube in the president's throat so that he could breathe. There was Dr. Malcolm Perry and Dr. Charles Baxter. Both Dr. Perry and Dr. Baxter were my staff men in surgery. They were a member of the surgical staff. Dr. Carrico was a resident, as I was. I think he was a first-year resident and I was a second-year resident. He may have been second, I don't remember that clearly. Anyway, they were trying to assess the initial area, which was in the back of the head on the right side. Primary area, which was in the back of the head on the right side. Primary area, which was in the back of the head on the right side. Primary area, which was in the back of the head on the right side.